Hi. Based on the title of this video, you probably think, why should I be taking this girl seriously? She's in her pajamas, sitting cross-legged on the floor, curled up in a blanket, and I answer that question with, don't trust me, then always have skepticism with everything that you think and do. This is mostly a rant because it's some thoughts I've had juggling in my head for the past few days, and I am just so profoundly upset at the state of the world and my seemingly lack of ability to do anything about it. And should I be showering and getting ready for work and going to the grocery store just so I can make dinner when I get home and, you know, tidying up a bit because it's kind of a mess? Yes, I should be doing all of those things, and hopefully I get at least 75% of those things done before I have to go to work. But here's the thing. What's the fucking point? What's the fucking point of going to work and making money and working to live when this planet is not surviving? And I shouldn't say that. Earth will survive. Hell yeah, she will. Mother Nature, she's a bad bitch. She has survived at least 5 mass extinctions. Humans? We are not gonna survive, and if we do, it'll be very few of us, and it will be the rich ones, because they always survive. They hoard the wealth, and they continue the corruption. It's just the way of things. But all of that aside, I'm telling you, one of the 10 people who will watch this, right now, we have within our grasps everything we need to completely save the planet within 10 years. First things first, no commercial fishing for 5 years. You and Joe Blow want to go out on your boat and catch a couple of trout? Sure, that's great. Fucking you do that. No commercial fishing. It is so bad for the environment, and we are depleting our oceans at a rate faster than we can save them. But in 5 years, it would start recovering more than we can even imagine. After that 5 years is done, commercial fishing needs to be regulated. No systems in which we're dredging up the bottom of the ocean, and no like catching bigger animals and just slaughtering them in the process when we're going for hordes of fish. None of that. And it's gonna suck. Everybody likes sushi. Well, I shouldn't say everybody. So many people like sushi and fish, and it's a huge industry. A lot of the things that I'm gonna go over are huge industries, but here is my counter argument to that. We're human, we're adaptable, and this goes for everything that I'm about to list, and I'll probably forget things because I'm just kind of stream of consciousness right now, but okay. We are human, we are adaptable. You would be surprised how quickly you can adapt when faced with the loss of something. So we can go without fish. We can go without commercial fishing for 5 years. Like, we can. And that would have a great impact on the environment because the ocean is the detoxifier. The only reason climate change has not gone fucking haywire, and like there's always the argument of, oh, well, climate scientists have been blah 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 for this many years. First of all, the giant hole in the ozone layer that was caused by chemicals in hairsprays and manufacturing, we made those illegal, and the ozone hole decreased. So yes, climate scientists were like, hey, these chemicals are doing these things, we need to stop. That was in like the 70s. We stopped using those chemicals, suddenly things weren't as bad. Like, scientists aren't just being alarmists, they understand things that we don't understand. That being said, yes, the speed at which climate change has progressed hasn't been as fast as many predictions, and that is because the ocean is just taking on so much carbon to the point where our oceans are becoming acidic, and certain fish and our coral reefs and things can't survive. You know what can survive? Jellyfish. You know what has literally no use to humans or other aquatic creatures? Jellyfish. And they're just fucking taking over because they're the only things that can survive in that sort of environment. Farming is the next big thing. And don't worry, I'm gonna get to oil because that's the big one, so I'll save it for the end. Commercial farming. The other day I saw a TikTok and it was essentially saying, this woman, she has a bunch of chickens, she gets like 80 dozen eggs a month. And people are asking her, well, why don't you sell those eggs? She says, I can't. Unless you're a commercial farm, you still need a permit, one, to sell eggs, and you can only sell 15 dozen eggs a month. And she makes 80 dozen eggs a month. Like, that's ridiculous. You should be able to sell, you should be able to have small farms and sell all 80 dozen if people are there to buy them, which they will be. So we need to deregulate farming. We need to allow people to have small farms that have cows and chickens and, you know, all sorts of livestock and all sorts of crops, and make it more of a diverse, full functioning system, instead of these monoculture giant crops where we end up throwing out food anyways, throwing out meat, throwing out milk, throwing out all of these things. And yes, maybe we won't have a supply of milk or cheese is a little different because it keeps longer. So yeah, I don't think we'll ever really have to go without cheese. But milk, because milk is produced for baby cows. So say you are a farmer, you're only going to have supply to that milk. And yes, it is a surplus. You can feed your baby cows and you can still milk cows and get a substantial amount of milk. Like, don't get it twisted. Where was I going with that? So yes, maybe we don't have that instant access to milk all the time. That doesn't mean we're going to have to go without milk entirely. It just means you have to be smarter about your purchases of meat, your purchases of vegetables. Don't even get me started on vegans who are like, save the planet, become a vegan. No. Fucking huge crops of corn or whatever else, they are destroying the planet just as fast as meat. And because one, they are completely destroying the soil, topsoil that takes 1,000 years to, you know, regenerate and become healthy and beautiful like we have it. And palm oil, don't get me started on palm oil, the deforestation of the rainforest. And it's all for billionaires. It's all for people who I will never even meet. I'm never gonna meet a billionaire. And even if I do, I'm not gonna be friends with that person. And not because I wouldn't be friends with that person, but that person wouldn't be friends with me. A billionaire sees me the way that, not me personally, because I don't think I'm above or below any other person, but a billionaire sees me the same way a person in my class sees homeless people. And it's fucking stupid. We all like to think we're better than each other. We're not. So farming. Farming is one of the biggest things that we can change now. We can change it. Because farmers already know it's bullshit. Ask any commercial farmer and they will have a million things to complain about. Seeds? Fucking companies owning seeds? You can't reseed your own crops? Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Farming needs to be deregulated. And we need to be able to have small local farms to do whatever, you know, in local communities. I come from a farming community. I come from a community where you can buy farm fresh eggs, where people just have chickens, you know. I think my neighbor's downstairs. She always works there, and I don't know if you can hear me read my lips. She's probably very annoyed with this video right now. We good, we chill. She was there, she's not anymore. Okay, so farming. It needs to be deregulated. We need to be able to have I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but like we need to be able to have more than one crop. And there's a great documentary on Netflix called The Biggest Little Farm or The Littlest Big Farm, something along those lines. I highly, highly recommend checking it out if you are at all interested in more sustainable farming practices. So that's something that we can change, and yes, it'll take 5 to 10 years. But guess what? I've been an adult for 5 years or so. 5 years is not a long time. 5 years is not a long time. A lot can happen in 5 years, and a lot has happened in the last 5 years, and even my personal life. But that doesn't mean we can't, just because things have worked a certain way up to this point, does not mean at all that we cannot change and have them work differently. Okay, the biggest one, the one that all 10 of you have been waiting for, oil, natural gas, it needs to fucking go. And before you come at me, we have enough in reserve to last us the entire transition into renewable energy. And there's this whole, Texas, I'm looking at you, with all the outages, and yet somehow all of the fucking backwater conservatives on the conversations page from my town are saying windmills caused this because they're just echoing what they hear on Fox News. Like, fucking think for yourself. They always use that, like, oh, think, you think. Do you really think Fox News is always telling the truth? Because no one's always telling the truth. I don't even tell the truth all the time. I try. I'm really, really bad at lying. If I lie to you, you'll probably know. Anyways, no, I'm just fucking ranting. Renewables work. You can't say, you cannot say, oh, the windmills, they froze over in Texas, so we just can't use windmills or solar because they didn't work. First of all, Texas is 80% natural gas, so more than 10% or 20% of the country lost power, so don't even start with me. It's the infrastructure, it's the privatization. That's something that needs to be regulated. Public services need to be regulated, as in roads, power, water supply, all of these things need to be regulated, so then there is a standard of living. Things that don't need to be regulated, human bodies. That's a whole different debate. But yeah, oil and gas. There are windmills in Alberta and Saskatchewan, two of the coldest provinces. I mean, obviously not the north provinces, but like way colder than Texas. So don't even come at me with that bullshit. Like, renewables are a feasible option. And let me tell you why, especially the amount of government subsidies that are being flooded into gas and oil, because I mean it's all planned that way, is one, absolutely ridiculous, and two, enough money that if we funnel that into renewables, we could have a completely renewable system. And I know so many people, and like people who I agree with on a lot of other things, like people on more of the left side, centrist side, they want to say nuclear. But my argument against nuclear is we cannot put into place systems that if we suddenly disappear, it's going to fuck the planet. And nuclear will do that. Nuclear is, on paper, really good. It's efficient. It's affordable, all of these things, but it needs too much supervision, and the ramifications of accidents are too great. So I still say solar and wind are the most viable options. Even if that means, you know, there is a limit to how much power each individual is allowed to have because it's not being produced enough. But, and obviously water too, I forgot that one. Like dams and things. But dams also have a problem because they hoard all of the sediment that, washes, into whatever large body of water and then feeds into that ecosystem. So dams, I don't think are a super viable option, except for small dams. Like, small dams are okay, where that sediment is being washed through, within 5 years. But wind and solar, like, that's for real estate. So we really need to capitalize on those things. And jobs. It's, first of all, it's going to create just as many jobs, if not more, than the jobs that we lose. Second, why don't we use some of those subsidies to take the people in oil and gas and give them first priority on the new jobs? Say, look, if you worked in these industries, you're losing your jobs to these industries, you get, ahead of anybody else applying to these jobs, and we will train you, blah, blah, blah. Because we have to kill the coal industry, the gas industry, all of these things. And back to my point about what's in reserves, we have so much oil. We don't need to keep, we don't. I promise you that we don't need to keep digging it up. There's so much, to the point where there was, I don't know if it's still going, but off the Gulf of Mexico, like 15-year oil spill. Like, why are they not fixing that? Oh wait. If the oil's just leaking, and then we don't have to store it, then we can keep digging it up. Like, why do you think there's leaks in pipelines and spills of ships with thousands and thousands of gallons of oil, and train cars spilling, and all of these things? Some of them are accidents, not all of them are accidents. And a planned accident is not an accident. Story of my life, literally. Ask my mom about that one. Anyways, we're at almost 20 minutes. And yeah, there's tons of things that I'm missing in this video, obviously. But overall, I think those are, in my opinion, and from what I can see, and obviously I'm not an expert, but in the next 10 years, 10 years is not a lot. I'll be 33 in 10 years if I'm still alive. I'll still be young in 10 years if I'm still alive. We can completely save this planet, this pale blue dot that we are all flying through space on together. And despite all the evil and how bad things seem, I really do think that this life is worth it. And I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it so much in younger people, some older people, but I feel like if you think this way and you're older, you just already know. But younger people understanding the value that life has and the happiness that they can have. They can't right now. You just can't. The systems that have been put in place basically enslave us into lives that we don't want to live. And that is very systemic. But the problem is, the more the top hoards the wealth, the worse the lives of the lower and middle and lower classes become, the more likely we are to revolt. And that's what we need to do. We need to revolt. We need to change these systems. We need to demand it. We need to buy the eggs from the local farmer. We need to protest. And not just, there's in Vancouver right now, there are Indigenous people protesting, not 5 blocks from me. I'm not super good at geography, but I'm pretty sure if it's where I think it is, it's like 5 blocks away from where I'm sitting right now, who were met with violence when they are protesting peacefully for their land to not be destroyed by the oil and gas industry. an industry that is dying, an industry that is not needed. And don't tell me otherwise. Yes, our infrastructure is based around this industry. But like I said, we have so much oil in reserve. We can stop today. Today, we can stop digging it up and use the time between now and when we run out of those reserves, which we won't. We will transition smoothly if we decide to. But everyone's just so caught up in their own bullshit, in their love lives, their work, their family, their friends, their financial situations, their clout. And it's all just bullshit. None of it matters. It all matters, but none of it does. Because in 1,000 years, you're not going to be here. Unless you're watching this in 1,000 years, which I highly doubt. But I'm not going to be here in 1,000 years. Or unless they do create some technology where we can essentially live forever. But then again, that's another debate for another day. We can do it in 10 years. People like you and me have more power than we will ever realize. I hope not ever. I hope we are at the beginning of the reclaiming of the middle class. Not everybody needs to be rich. Not everyone needs to be super poor. Some people need to be really rich. Some people need to be really poor. Most of us need to be in the middle, and we need to be comfortable. The problem is we get too comfortable and then it swings and there's a hoarding of power. And I mean, it's human history, baby. It's been going on for as long as we've been around. People get too much power, the people realize, the majority, the minority get too much power, the majority realize, they take back that power, they get comfortable, they aren't paying attention to what the 1% are doing. The 1% hoard and hoard and hoard. The 99 realize that suddenly their lives are getting really bad, and we revolt and we take it back. Can we change the pattern? Can we change the system? Because the stakes have become too high. It was all fine and dandy when it was spices and gold. It's not spices and gold anymore. It's humanity. It's the planet.